Welcome to Sizzle Fantasy Sports, the channel with the most sizzling hot fantasy takes and analysis, presented by your host, Gavin.
Rodgers clean pocket, throws the middle to Yates, Devontae, touchdown, and a dagger!
How's it going, you guys? Welcome back to the SFS channel. My name's Gavin, and today we're going to be hopping back into the fantasy football realm of things. After taking a while off, we've been doing a lot of off-season stuff and a lot of NFL mock drafts. But today we have a fantasy football mock draft for the early 2021 offseason. It's going to be really interesting to see how free agency has played into these picks here and impacts how I see some guys falling on the board here. So if you guys are new around here to the SFS channel, head down and click that subscribe button and turn that bell on if you guys haven't already, so you're notified whenever I come out with a new video. So without further ado, you guys, let's not waste any more time and let's get straight into that first overall pick. All right, you guys, we're here to the mock draft. I'm going to be going with the 1.4 pick here and also switching things up a little bit here, going with the light mode on Sleeper Fantasy. But without further ado, you guys, let's get straight into the draft and get this thing started. I don't think I've ever done a mock draft out of the 1.4 spot before on the channel, but that's where we're going to start at today. The first three picks off the board, I'm actually quite shocked to see that Sleeper has Derrick Henry going at the 1.1. With this being a full PPR mock draft, I don't necessarily agree with this at all. I think that Christian McCaffrey, who went at the 1.3, or even Dalvin Cook, who I'll end up taking here at the 1.4, are probably better options to go with. I think Derrick Henry's great. His touchdown ceiling and obviously his workload are fantastic, but I don't think the receiving volume is there for a full PPR league to warrant him going this high. Obviously, that entire offense is built around Derrick Henry, but like I said, there's not much receiving volume. In my stats that's going to be coming out in my draft guide, you guys will see that. You can even just go and look it up on NFL.com. The receiving numbers aren't there for Derrick Henry. Saquon Barkley, he's got his concerns. I'm surprised he goes ahead here. But nonetheless, we're going Dalvin Cook at the 1.4. I would even vie for going Dalvin Cook at the 1.1, to be honest, in a full PPR league or even half PPR league. I just think Dalvin Cook has the most stable offensive situation right now. I know that offensive line is not amazing and they're rebuilding, but Cook's done just fine with the guys he's been given in his career to this point. I think he's one of the more dynamic backs in the league. He's a very underrated not wide receiver, but a receiving target out of the backfield, and he can do a lot of things after the catch. And obviously, we all know how elite he is as a pure runner. So, if you guys have been following me here this offseason on the SFS channel, you guys will know my top strategy is to go running back either early in round one and try and secure one of those top three guys. And that elite tier of running backs, that tier for me right now, is Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, and Alvin Kamara, and that 1A class of running backs. I've got myself locked up Dalvin Cook, and if I weren't able to do this, I think I would pass and go for one of the elite wide receivers and come back and get a tier 1B or 1C running back in the second round. The key here is, though, you have to walk away from the first two rounds with at least one running back. I think that's crucial and is something that's not really debatable here. Your team needs top-end RB production because the drop-off is so significant at the back end of the draft. You can get, there's so many wide receiver 2-level producers out there in the mid-rounds of this draft. You're going to see how you can find just heaps of those guys in round 7, 8, and 9 when the running back crop is just terrible. So, nonetheless, we walk out of round 1 with Dalvin Cook here. In the second round here, I've got some solid options at running back, and I might even double up and go running back. But then, obviously, you guys, I think it's crucial to not triple up at running back here because I think it does come to a point when running back limits your ceiling a bit too much. So, the running backs I see on the board here, two names I really like to jump off the screen immediately. Cam Akers, DeAndre Swift, I think they are very, very solid guys who are coming into year 2 here and are looking for a massive boom in their production. I'm going to be making a video about year 2 breakout players. Those two will certainly be featured and probably be on my thumbnail because they are that good and that talented. I love what those guys can do with their schemes. For the sake of this video, I think I'm going to go with Cam Akers here. Cam Akers in year 2 in a Sean McVay offense. Sign me up all day, every day. They've talked about how he has the skills to be an every down back in this league. He is crazy explosive, and when he hits the edge, he seems like he's gone every single time. He has got wheels. He's very elusive, and I think that, like I said, put him in Sean McVay's scheme, give him Matt Stafford some increased play at quarterback, Cam Akers, the only thing that could potentially hold him back is injuries, and we saw that a little bit in his rookie season, but if he stays healthy, the sky's the limit for him. I could see him being a top 5 running back. That's fairly optimistic, and I wouldn't expect that out of him by any stretch of the imagination, but I think top 10 is a fairly safe range to project him to fall into this season. If you guys want to find out my actual running back rankings or positional rankings, any of that stuff, you guys can head over and purchase my draft guide that's going to be going up. Hopefully, April 1st is the goal right now. I've got the website under development right now, and we've got lots of awesome and great stuff going into that. So stick around on the channel if you guys think that sounds like something you'd be interested in, and give this video a like if you guys are enjoying to this point. So here at the 3.4, we've got ourselves our top 2 running backs. I really like DeAndre Swift here on the board, but my philosophy of avoiding going triple up running backs in the first 3 rounds kind of remains here. When you look at guys who are still on the board, though, it's a no-brainer. I think that even though I've got a guy like DeAndre Swift, on the board right now, I turn around and look at a guy like Stephon Diggs who's still on the board here. I don't think this is necessarily that realistic. Sleeper Fantasy, this is a great website, a great mock draft tool, but I don't think a lot of people are doing mock drafts right now. Look at some of the spots that people are going at right now. Ezekiel Elliott at the 2-1. That's a bit early. I think DK Metcalf, I don't know how he crept into the first round at the 112 there, but it happened. James Robinson, a bit early for my liking at the 2-5. I think Julio Jones, the 2-4, is a bit early for him with the injury struggles we've seen of late. So I fully would expect Stephon Diggs to be going ahead of a guy like Mike Evans as well. But remember you guys, this is not my ADP. This is Sleeper Fantasy's ADP, and they collect these numbers from people using their website as a draft tool, and they use the data that you guys give them. So the people out there drafting, this is how they're valuing players right now. I think it's a bit silly. My rankings would be far off of this. I think that there's definitely guys sliding down here who are being valued too low, and I certainly think there's guys on the board right now being valued too high. For example, Travis Etienne and Najee Harris are already going in the late 3rd and early 4th rounds before we even know what team they're going to. So this is not a perfect and flawless draft system by any stretch of the imagination, but hopefully you guys can appreciate and just listen and gather in kind of the stuff I'm talking through here as I do this mock and talk about some players I'm taking. So I love Keenan Allen here at the 4-8 that went the pick before me. I would have loved to have him on my fantasy team here. But nonetheless, I think in the 4th round here, I immediately see Justin Jefferson leap off my screen again. It seems like I've had one guy in every round who seems like a home run hit. So I think I'm going to have to go with Justin Jefferson. I think Justin Jefferson, as early as the 3rd round, is viable this coming year. Mid-3rd, late 3rd. I think Jefferson's going to be one of the better fantasy players in the league next season. This guy, what he does from a route running perspective, the poise he already possesses as a rookie. The one thing I am not a huge fan of is I can tell he's starting to become kind of a diva like Stephon Diggs was. He likes to talk and whatnot, but hey, he's a great wide receiver. You can't knock the guy. Like I said, those routes are pristine, and you can hate on me all you want, you guys. I've been talking about this a lot in recent videos. I think Kirk Cousins is a top 12 quarterback, and I'm a Green Bay Packer fan, so I think that him and Kirk, they can do big things. Jefferson, 1,400 yards as a rookie. I think he only had 7 touchdowns too. So if we see that number drive up a little bit, Justin Jefferson is in for a massive season. And his target share was really nice last year as well. So here at the 5-4, I've got myself 2 running backs and 2 great wide receivers. I think it's time to go out and look for, let's see what tight ends are available. I like to fade the tight end if possible. But with a guy like Darren Waller on the board, I don't know how you would justify passing on him here. And what the Raiders have done in free agency is they have completely wiped that offensive line. So that's a huge knock on Josh Jacobs here at the 2-2. Not so big of a fan of him until they address that. They cut 4 of their 5 starting offensive linemen. So that's a big deal. But I'd be crazy not to take Darren Waller available here at the 5.4. I can't believe a guy like Mark Andrews is still going before him in mocks right now, but that just shows you guys we're not quite to fantasy season yet. I hope we get there pretty soon because these ADPs need to get updated a little bit. But nonetheless, Darren Waller, I think, is second to Travis Kelce, and that's it. I would even put Darren Waller ahead of George Kittle. If we're talking dynasty purposes, they're pretty even, but Darren Waller's a stud. This guy is a player who he does a lot of great things after the catch. I think he's the best receiving threat in Las Vegas right now for the Raiders football team. And I think that, Darren Waller is a guy who can put up wide receiver 1 numbers at the tight end spot. And that's not something we see very often as at the tight end position. You see those big 4 guys up on the board. Zach Ertz is kind of taking a step off a cliff. And he's being allowed by the Eagles right now to search for a trade and shop his talents around to other teams. And a team that is reportedly interested is the Chiefs. I think that would just be crazy. I could not see Travis Kelce playing alongside Zach Ertz for the same football team. But nonetheless, a little bit of off-topic rant there about the tight ends. I think it's crazy that Waller fell to the 5-4. I think he's a 4th round, maybe even late 3rd round player if you're looking at guys like Mark Andrews and George Kittle there. So let's look here. At my 6.9 pick, I probably can start considering quarterback, although quarterback is pretty darn deep. And for the drop-off, I think it might be a little bit wiser to check out the running backs before we make any decisions here. Ronald Jones is still on the board. Leonard Fournette is supposedly meeting with other teams, so that could be big news for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Ronald Jones, I think if he gets the opportunity to be a lead back and a full-time starter, is going to do great things for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He was really, really effective when he got the chance last season, so I'd keep your eye out for Rojo if Lenny were to depart this season. Other wide receivers on the board here, it looks like these rookies are getting a lot of hype right now. They're rated ahead of quite a few, in terms of ADP, they're ahead of quite a few established veterans who should 100% be going before them in this mock draft. We've already got the tight end position locked up here. Yeah, it's crazy that Jalen Waddle should never, ever be going ahead of Raheem Mostert, and Raheem Mostert is a guy who is an injury-prone running back with the super high ceiling. He's got his issues, but you don't pick a rookie before him there. I think I'm going to go ahead over here to running back, and I think I'm going to take Ronald Jones here. I like Kareem Hunt, especially with this being PPR. I think Kareem Hunt racks in a lot of catches, but I think his ceiling is a bit limited, and he needs those receptions to put up those numbers. Raheem Mostert, fantastic talent. Really like him as a player, but he's late 20s now. The injuries were a huge issue last season. The 49ers run a committee-style backfield. There's too many red flags and concerns for me. Le'Veon Bell is not a starting running back in the league anymore. Devin Singletary, not a true starting running back either. Mark Ingram signed with the Texans. I got to go with Rojo here. This is the most logical pick. And at the 6'9", I think that's honestly quite a steal. So coming back to me here at the 7-5, I think it's time, or at least it's a fair time, to consider quarterback. This is ridiculous, you guys. Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence should not be going at that spot at all. Never in a million years would they go before Kyler or Aaron Rodgers, or even in the next 4 rounds, if we're being quite honest. So that's quite bad. I think I have to take, it's a bit risky. Do I take Desean Watson with the rumors that he might hold out all next season if the Texans aren't to move off of him? Dak Prescott just snapped his leg last year, and so I think I go Josh Allen here at the 7-4. Josh Allen would probably not still be on the board at this spot. I think the logical thing to do would be to slide up the 2 quarterbacks that went after Lawrence and Fields, because they would never go before them at this stage of their careers. So move everybody up a couple slots. Maybe Josh Allen isn't on the board here. I'm a little bit disappointed to see that Sleeper's ADP is still a bit skewed and not really up to date, but it is what it is, you guys. This is the best we have to work with. Sleeper, I think, is the best tool in season if you're looking to do mock drafts. During the summer, you guys will see me do lots and lots and lots of mocks every single week with the Sleeper app is what it's called. You're able to run fantasy football leagues on here. The mock draft feature is one of my favorites. You guys will see this pop up frequently throughout the offseason. I really like to use it, and I rely on this website, although right now the data isn't quite up to par with what we would like it to be, but that's just kind of the nature of it being mid-March and not July and August. So here at the 8-9, once again, another really intriguing scenario. I think it might be smart to go with another wide receiver here. I escaped the top 2 rounds here. I really liked with Cook and Akers, and then following that up with Rojo. I think I've got myself a 3-headed monster at running back, and then my top 2 receivers I'm feeling pretty confident in as well. But if I could lock up one more guy with a high ceiling, I think that would be pretty solid. There's not too many elite names on the board here at all. I think that certainly going with the guy like Will Fuller could be solid, but we don't know where he's going to land yet. He's still on the market and obviously suspended for his use of some sort of illegal substance last season. So I'm thinking CeeDee Lamb here. I love Tyler Boyd at that third wide receiver spot. Super safe player, and when he's been on the field with competent quarterback play, he's been very, very productive. So I like Tyler Boyd, but CeeDee Lamb, he's an uber talent in year 2. I think he could do some major things if Dak Prescott is able to be himself. Now, let's talk about this, you guys. I think Will Fuller, once we know where he lands, he potentially could easily go ahead of CeeDee Lamb as a more established talent, but it's unlikely he's back with the Texans. He needs to go somewhere where he's either the wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 1B, if that makes any sense. Like, not a wide receiver 2 suppressed by a dominant alpha wide receiver 1 on the football team, but a guy who shares some looks. Maybe this is just for comparison's sake, but if he were to go to a place like Green Bay where you see a guy like Devontae Adams getting uber targets, he is the clear-cut wide receiver 1 in that offense. Will Fuller takes a little bit of a step back, but if he were to go somewhere like the Jets, he steps up in that 1A spot on the team. I think he's a pretty safe go, and even with the poor quarterback play, I think he can still be fairly productive. So at the 9-4 here, once again, tons of wide receivers still on the board. Deontay Johnson, Deebo Samuel. Look at Jamison Crowder is a very underrated name. Jalen Reagor could have a year 2 breakout. Brandon Ayuk was super consistent during the back half of this season. Robbie Anderson still on the board. Wow, that's pretty crazy. Lots of names out here. Lots and lots and lots of names at the wide receiver position. Head back over to tight end. Not too many names here. I think it's pretty safe to walk out of a mock draft with only one tight end, just because there's other positions you can fill that are more valuable at this spot. And if you have to stream a guy off the waiver wire, I think you're better off doing that and just crossing your fingers for a touchdown, especially already having an elite option like Waller. You don't really need a roster 2 of those guys. So we're set at quarterback. We're set at that top 3 running back spot. But maybe before we come back in the 10th round, we take one more name just to solidify the group and have a really strong core of 4 guys. And that will help us prevent at least having some issues down the road. I do see the option of bringing in a handcuff player like Darrell Henderson for Cam Akers. I really like this because of Cam Akers' injury history, but I do think it is a bit early. I'm torn with this pick here. I don't think I want to reach for any of the running backs at this spot, and the wide receiver position is so deep, but I think there is a bit of a drop-off. I don't think Deontay Johnson lasts this long this season. Julian Edelman, Devontae Parker, Rondale Moore, T.Y. Hilton, just reading some names off on the board. Rashad Bateman, A.J. Green. Those are all guys that are not going to go before Deontay Johnson this season, just for reference purposes, because Deontay Johnson was a target hog last year. So I think Deontay Johnson goes earlier, late 6th, 7th round even. He's going to see a jump and a boost in his ADP this year, rightfully so. Led the Steelers in targets. He had some drops, but he was very, very productive and was a staple of my fantasy lineups last year as a late-round steal in many of my leagues. Here at the 10-9 now, maybe it's time to go about that running back position one more time. There are some options, nothing too fantastic. I think it is important to walk out of this round with one more guy. Chase Edmonds, actually, fun fact, you guys, I think he's the best running back under contract right now for the Arizona Cardinals. We'll see if they bring back Drake or not, or what they do with that situation. But Chase Edmonds, who knows, he might just inherit himself a starting gig next year in Arizona. That'd be pretty fun to see, as I think he's a pretty darn special talent. Obviously, he's a bit smaller. He's a bit of a scat back, but he's very elusive. He gets lost in the offensive line sometimes, which makes him very able to have explosive plays. He's a guy to keep your eye on this season. I think here, though, at this spot, based on how these other running backs performed last year and how they are valued coming into this year, I think it's time for Darrell Henderson at the end of the 10th round. We need that 4th running back. We need a handcuff option to play behind Cam Akers, especially in the event that he gets injured. I think that safety blanket is kind of a nice situation for Henderson. I'm not a huge guy who likes to go out there and reach for handcuff players, but in this spot, Cam Akers has injuries last year. So did Darrell Henderson, to be fair. But I think that it just gives you some stability. It's a really good offense. I think they can make it work with a lot of guys. Henderson seems to make some sense as a high-end RB2 if something were to happen to Akers, who I expect to give us RB1 production. Now here we can start looking at some secondary quarterbacks. This is ridiculous. I can't believe that I just saw this one. Justin Herbert's still down here. I think that if anyone saw me realize he was still on the board and not take him, I would be eaten alive in the comment section. So another one, you guys, I apologize for this ADP. I'm trying to pick this to the best of my ability. I don't always see the guys on the board that are the crazy value picks here that seem to be falling because of the quite trash ADP, to be honest. But Herbert at the 11-4, home run hitter. He's going to be a beast next year. I love Keenan Allen. I think it's one of the best situations in fantasy. I think they're both top 5 guys next year. Justin Herbert, or at least potentially, that's their ceiling. Justin Herbert, he's one of the better arm talents in the league. He made some crazy throws last year. And I think that offense is only going to continue to grow and get better. I know they lost their center. They've got some work to do on the offensive line, but the skill positions are pretty darn good there. They also had Hunter Henry depart, but it's all right. Justin Herbert's a stud. They're going to make it work. They can address spots in free agency this offseason and in the draft. I have no worries with Justin Herbert going into next year. And for Keenan Allen, he is a PPR monster. He racks up receptions and targets, and he actually led the league in targets prior to injuring his hamstring at the end of the year. So really confident about those two. 12-9 here. Let's see who we can find as a bargain steal here at this point in the draft. Might be time to go get Chase Edmonds. Damian Harris might be a starter next year, depending on what happens. A.J. Dillon will not be a starter anymore after Aaron Jones got re-signed. So unless something were to happen to Jones in camp, A.J. Dillon's stock just took a huge hit over the last couple days. I can't pass up. This one is tough, though. Do I go Chase Claypool or Brandon Ayuk? These are two guys who I see having really nice potential in year 2. Chase Claypool, if Juju departs, I think might be more intriguing as, this is a PPR draft, but he's a guy who can rack up those targets. He's got great size, pretty darn good speed, and that red zone ability because that size is very impressive. And then Brandon Ayuk on the other side, he's already the wide receiver 2 in that offense. They do have Kittle, so that might knock him down to 3 when Debo's healthy, which wasn't the case last season. But nonetheless, I think that Ayuk here in the 12th round could be solid. I'll go with him until we know whether or not Juju is leaving or not. So that will do it for that round. I believe I have... All right, I've got 3 picks left here. So time for one more position. If I look at my board here, let's head over to the roster. I should have had this up the whole time, you guys. Sorry about that. We've got one more bench space available. The starting lineup besides defense and kicker is filled out, but I don't want to reach on those guys. No point to. Kickers are so irrelevant. My philosophy for drafting kickers, if you guys are curious, it's quite simple. Find a team that has a solid offense but bad red zone offense and a somewhat reliable kicker. Boom, top 5 kicker in the league. They go to the red zone, stall out, 3 points every time. That's what I did with Young Hoku last year. Worked like a charm. The Falcons, they get down there, they couldn't punch it in. Bam, 3-4 points based on how he did there. I loved having Koo on my team in fantasy last season. He was a monster. So my last pick here, not time to go tight end, I don't think at all. Yeah, even with Jonnu Smith headed to the Patriots, I'll still pass on him here. I guess I do have Tanyan on the board, but he is a restricted free agent. It might not even be back with Green Bay. And if I'm being honest as a Packer fan, the majority of his production came from A, touchdowns, which were a hugely inflated stat for him last year, and B, explosive plays down the field that he got off play action. I don't think the value is sustainable for Robert Tanyan, and I would expect a dip this season. Looking at this, I think I'm going to have to go with running back. I love the idea of Chase Edmonds, but here's what I'm thinking with this next pick. Marlon Mack's a free agent. Jonathan Taylor is a top 5 running back in fantasy this season, maybe top 6 depending on scoring format. Nyheim Hines is kind of that electrifying receiving back in that Colts offense. He is dang impressive. He did some really, really great things after the catch last season with Phil Rivers. I think if Nyheim Hines falls into a spot where Jonathan Taylor gets injured for some reason, he's going to be a top 12 back because of the receiving value he puts up. Add some touches in there for him, give him some goal line carries. Nyheim Hines is a really nice flex play in PPR leagues. I actually flexed him in a lot of PPR leagues after how he started performing last season. I think moving forward this year, we could see a lot of the same. At the 14-9, it's time to go defense and kicker. But like I said, though, Chase Edmonds could inherit a starting job. So it depends on where the landing spots kind of play out here the rest of the offseason. I think defense is more important personally than kicker. There are some decent options out here. Top two I see right now are Tampa Bay and San Francisco. I think the 49ers have the better all-around unit, at least in the front seven. But no more Robert Saleh. I think that's a big deal. I'll stick with Todd Bowles and go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They brought back virtually everybody that they had that was relevant to that defense. I was actually really high on the Bucs last season as a defensive special teams option for fantasy football. I saw Shaq Barrett and what he did in that year with Jameis. The sack numbers were electric. Ndamukong Suh, very solid. Levante David, good. You bring in Devin White. You add in Jason Pierre-Paul to the mix. And just a greatly orchestrated defense. Those guys were lights out. You saw what they did to Pat Mahomes. It was ridiculous. Tampa Bay was insane to end this season. Obviously, the Super Bowl champions. So they were doing something right. And then Young Ho Koo, as I prefer to call him, falls in my lap here at the 15-4 to end things out for today's mock. So, quick recap of the team here before I head out. We've got Dalvin Cook in the first, going back to back with Cam Akers in the second round, and then we round out our top two wide receivers with Stephon Diggs and Justin Jefferson. Head over to tight end with Darren Waller in the fifth round, and then Ronald Jones for that flex or third running back spot, if you will. Josh Allen at the quarterback spot, CeeDee Lamb and Deontay Johnson as other receiver options. Darrell Henderson to handcuff, Cam Akers, Justin Herbert as a sneaky find in the 11th round there when he fell down the board. And then Brandon Ayuk, Nyheim Hines, and the Tampa Bay Bucks and Young Koo to finish off this mock draft. All right, you guys, that was another early offseason fantasy football mock draft for the 2021 season. Now, you guys, I know this mock draft was not perfect. It could have been better, and they will continue to get better as we move throughout the offseason here. But like I said, that ADP in the sleeper system right now, it's not quite up to date. I don't think many people are doing mock drafts right now, so this was purely for entertainment purposes and to just kind of talk through some players and talk about what I expect to go down next season, how I'm projecting things as an early off basis here in 2021. So the free agents are still moving around right now. There's still a lot happening in this 2021 offseason. The draft hasn't occurred yet, so lots of dominoes to fall. If you guys enjoyed this video, as always, make sure to give it a like, give this video a thumbs up, and remember, subscribe and turn the bell on as well so you guys are always notified for my content. So thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.